On everybody, the WEF had their panel this morning, and oh my goodness, we're going to cover everything. It was all about tokenization, and they let us know exactly which direction everything is heading. Again, we've been beating infrastructure, and building out in advance, and now we are starting to see the breadcrumbs come to fruition for us. So I have the entire panel. I highlighted the key moments. We're not going to cover everything in it because there are some dry areas, but I want you guys to see it firsthand, because right now, if we look at the market, crypto can't decide what it wants to do. We had a nice pump and dump, pump fake, whatever you want to call it this morning. But again, we're still tracking to our $1.75 level. The entire crypto market is roughly down today, except for CC, which we've been talking about now for about the past 3 weeks. And if you hopped in on it at the beginning of the month, you're having a pretty good time right now, 63%. Again, nothing in the stream is financial advice, but we are here for infrastructure plays, about building for the long view, not for what price is today or tomorrow, but a week from now, but a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now is what we are here for. So without further ado, let's hop into what actually happened here. Now, I can't timestamp it like I can on YouTube, but I did write down the times here, so bear with me. I'm going to go through the key points, the highlights, if you will, because there's some really good information in here, so hang with me. Again, engage in the chat, like the stream, share it out far and wide. Let's get it growing as big as we can, but we're going to hop into what was actually said at the World Economic Forum. I retweeted this. You can follow me on X if you want to watch the entire thing. It's 49 minutes long. I just grabbed what I thought were the highlights, and it's still quite a bit. So we're going to hop into this and take a look, all right? We're going to start with essentially the intro to the panel, but this whole thing has good information, so I'm going to try and keep it as entertaining as possible while jumping around. But we're going to start here with the beginning.
Standard Chartered Bank, also International Business Council. Valérie Urbain, Chief Executive Officer, Euroclear Belgium. Brian Armstrong, co-founder and Chief Executive Officer, Coinbase. And Brad Garlinghouse, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Ripple. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, Governor, I want to kick off the conversation exploring why we are here today talking about tokenization. France has the G7 presidency this year. You've put innovative finance on the agenda already, talking about tokenization. Why?
Good morning, Karen. Good morning to you all. Let me first stress that tokenization and stablecoins really this year. If we had been in Davos 1 year ago, remember, nobody spoke about stablecoins. And now it's very fashionable. I hope it will be still more important this year than Greenland, but we'll see. And let me stress that tokenization is for the better. I really believe it will bring progress in global finance, delivery versus payments, diminution of cost of financial transactions, etc. By the way, we don't know yet how far the use cases will go. If you look at the forecast for the volume of stable coins, including on the US market, the bracket is very wide, and it's interesting, because at present the use cases are concentrated on the crypto exchanges and a bit cross-border. I think it will come to domestic financial transactions, very significant. Could it come to domestic, quote-unquote, economic transaction, including retail? The jury is still out. But
all right, I'm going to skip over this guy. He is boring as hell, but that was the start of it. Let me see. My next point was the 12-minute mark. Let me hop over to that here. Find the 12-minute mark. We're close. Okay, so this is a Standard Charter. If it ever decides to load. Why are you giving me such a hard time now, X? Load. Load, X, load. What the heck, yo? Pause, play. It's just not going to work? What the heck, man? I swear my internet's not bad. I've only watched this entire clip like 17 times. X doesn't want to work. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. Oh, that works. Okay.
200 billion world to participate
now it wants
in
to
pilot form, and
it just didn't want to load in on that specific clip. Here you go.
The wholesale euro
See, there have been other earlier stages with ECNY, but not really using commercial transactions, the Chinese currency, in the same way. But this is the year when this is happening in scale, and I have no doubt, no less conviction than I did a year ago, that eventually all things will settle in digitized form. How we get there, I don't know. I mean, we as a bank, we're operating in 60 countries on the ground, another 60 that we deal in very.
Unit of that asset, you now have a token like the U.S. stock market or real estate or whatever. So what tokenization can do is it's just like you have an underlying unit of that asset. You now have a token that's one-to-one representative of that. The first version of this was stablecoins. That's another version of tokenization. So stablecoins have been growing enormously. We're now seeing that happen with U.S. equities, real estate. It'll happen with corporate paper, commodities, like all kinds of things will come on chain. And this is just going to allow the people of the world to participate in this engine of wealth creation, which most of them don't have access to if they're only dependent on their labor for some source of income. So it'll be a great boon for capitalism. It'll create more demand. When we speak with funds like at BlackRock and Apollo, they've said they want to tokenize every single fund that they have, and they just know that it'll increase demand for their products. So Coinbase launched a product called Coinbase Tokenize, which is helping institutions do this, and we're incredibly bullish on it. If I can make one other point, just to build on what the central bank governor here said earlier, I do think that stablecoins are going to play a major role. I think central bank digital currencies can also play a complementary role, and people think about.
Okay, important takeaway real quick. I'm going to interrupt it for a second. Notice how they're talking about other currencies, right? China, the euro, right? I don't know if they mentioned it yet, but they will. They mentioned Japan, okay? Multiple different currencies coming on blockchain, and it's starting to scale out. Again, we've talked about XRP and other, we've talked about XRP specifically needing to have things to bridge between. Tokenization is going to bring more stuff on Ledger. So let's continue with it because this gets juicy, man. This whole thing, I could seriously just try to play and narrate this whole thing for you, but I want you guys to get the main pieces without losing everyone. You know what I mean? Here we go.
System as kind of sacrosanct, and it's the only way to do it. But if you study the history of money, really, it's got created in like 1971 when Nixon went off the gold standard in the U.S. and we currently have the system where most central banks don't have any link to a hard commodity underneath. I think fiat currencies are going to continue to exist for a long time. But we're also seeing the birth of a new monetary system that I would call the Bitcoin standard instead of the gold standard. And in the crypto space, that is a return to sound money and something that is inflation resistant, because democracies around the world, once we came off the gold standard, are struggling to balance their budget. They're all running deficits, and it's caused inflation in fiat currencies. And so there is a real segment of the population that is looking for a new system based on hard money.
Brad, on that note, there are lots of sound bites there, lots to respond to. You're already seeing the momentum. First up, tokenized assets on Ripple's XRP ledger surged over 2,200% last year. Just weigh in from your perspective.
Well, I think I agree with a lot of what was said here. I do think the first poster child of tokenization was really stablecoins. You saw, as Brian observed, massive growth last year. I think, went from, in 2024, $19 trillion of transactions on stablecoins. Last year, in 2025, is $33 trillion, so about 75% growth. I think many in our industry would say that's going to continue. I think to the extent there's space between what Brian was just talking about and how I think about the Bitcoin idea of a Bitcoin standard, I look at that and I think it's much more of the marriage. Sovereignty of fiat currencies, I believe, is for many countries sacrosanct. Ben Bernanke spoke at a Ripple event many years ago, and he made the point that governments will roll tanks into the street before giving up monetary supply, giving up the control of monetary supply, which stuck with me as, yeah, that makes sense. And so at Ripple, we very much focused on building the bridges between traditional finance, as Bill was describing, what we now call TradFi, and decentralized finance, and that has meant working with a lot of the banks around the world to kind of build those bridges.
You have to address the
So what he said right there was vitally important. Again, he's mentioning the fact that we need to bridge TradFi and blockchain. But what he just pointed out, so what Brian Armstrong was pointing out is that people wanting to create a hard money standard, almost like going back to the gold standard, but the digital form of it being the Bitcoin standard. That's why Bitcoin pumped so hard this morning, by the way. If you need a clue, that got announced this morning. People rushed, started buying Bitcoin, and then it immediately got sold into by the whales. That's why we had the pump and dump today. So, I mean, for whatever reason, Brian Armstrong is pushing that Bitcoin narrative, but ultimately everything is about tokenization. Again, they're pointing out, we've mentioned it in stream quite a few times about our XRPL's 2,200% increase in tokenization over the last year. And again, things are just now starting to expand out globally with the pilots and everything. And the United States is actually behind a lot of other areas. So that's why it's crucial that we get the Clarity Act through. And they do talk about the Clarity Act. Brian Armstrong had something to say about it, of course, and we'll cover that as well. We're going to cover everything. I got all the highlights for you. Let's go ahead and get back into it. You guys don't want to listen to me. You want to listen to them. Let's see what they have to say.
Is the euro in danger from a Bitcoin standard?
No, I'm a bit skeptical, Brian. Sorry to say it about this idea of the Bitcoin standard. We left the gold standard, but the gold was only a technical mean. What is important is what you say, Brad, that monetary policy and money is part of sovereignty. And we live in democracies, and I think the public role is key. And if we lose that, really you lose a key function of democracy. That said, I always keep, and this is another of stablecoins, famous one, that the bad currency is more used for transaction, and the good currency, which would be CBDC, would be kept for store values. Right. So I think we are on the right track to regulate. We could improve MiCA, still more improved Genius, perhaps. And the question of compatibility you raised, we discuss it in the BIS. I happen to chair the BIS. There is a so-called Agora project, and we will discuss it in the G7 in the French presidency. Right. But regulation is not the enemy of innovation. Once more, it's a guarantee of trust.
It's fascinating that you say that. Brian, you mentioned a complementary role that you could play. Is there a complementary role in Europe when there's so much regulation and it is about the digital euro?
Yeah, I actually think these are very positive sums. So crypto just broadly is a technology to update financial services. So it's going to help with stablecoins and tokenized equities and crypto assets and trading. And by the way, borrowing and lending is also getting updated. So I think that crypto is very good for fiat currencies. It's very good. Bitcoin is good as a check and balance on deficit spending, because when there is a lack of trust, or people, from like in a U.S. context, if people are worried about inflation, or maybe in places like Argentina or Turkey or Nigeria, they are going to flee to the thing that they believe is going to store value more. So I think in general, it's going to be very complementary. And like you said, I think it comes down to trust. And so if fiat currencies can maintain trust and not have, the money printer kind of debasing everybody, then they'll survive. But if countries that...
You guys have heard me talk about debasement a lot. Again, if fiat currency maintain trust? Will they turn off the money printer? Will they quit debasing everything we own? That's the question. They talk a lot about trust, and the more they talk, what is it when someone says, like, if someone comes to you and says, I'm being honest with you, you can trust me, your first red flag goes up saying you don't trust them, really. So they're going to be fighting for our trust over the next several weeks. So, I mean, not even just several weeks, the next several years, it seems like. And I'm curious how it plays out.
Have bad behavior on that dimension. Bitcoin doesn't have a money printer. The supply is fixed, and people will go to it in times of uncertainty, kind of like they did with gold.
The guarantee for trust is independence on central bank side. And we have a common mandate, and we are accountable to that. But sorry to say that I trust
world. But of a few of these initiatives because we want to parlay the trust that we can bring, we collectively as banks can bring to the system and lever these fantastically powerful new instruments in a complementary way.
There's an element of trust, but there's also an element of momentum. We're seeing it in terms of the swing away to gold, which is now just a momentum trade as trust has eroded. Brad, do you want to come in on this in the element of trust?
Well, I certainly think momentum is a big part of this, and I think, frankly, I personally think the crypto environment and stablecoins included, and even tokenization, momentum is so much on our side of that direction. And that's partly because you're seeing the US, the largest economy in the world, has been pretty openly hostile towards facets of crypto and blockchain technologies, and that has shifted dramatically, starting with the White House, but certainly, the work that the industry based in the US has come together and helped elect a much more pro-crypto, pro-innovation Congress, and you're seeing that play out. So I think momentum is a big part of this, and continuing to make sure that we're playing into that in a nice way, but also demonstrating real results. Because look, if this is just hype, I think part of the tokenization topic, the main topic today, part of that is we shouldn't tokenize everything just to tokenize something. There has to be a positive outcome of efficiency or transparency or some of the root benefits of being tokenized. Otherwise, it's just okay, it's a nice science experiment.
I'm surprised no.
All right, so yeah, don't tokenize everything just to tokenize it, man. Brad G out here talking about, he's honestly, of this panel, as we're looking at this panel, the only ones I actually kind of trust are Brad G and the lady in the middle. I can't remember her name. But she's working in Europe. She's part of the group in Europe overseeing MICA and things like that. And then you got Standard Charter here, and then you got Coinbase here, and then BIS over here. So this is a who's who of who's going to be involved in tokenization moving forward. Lots of information here. Let's go skip ahead here. Let me find the next part. This is close enough. Here we go.
I know, Brian, you've had issues with the Clarity Act, and now it's stalled thanks to some of your opposition. You've been talking about whether there should be a reward paid for some of these tokenized assets, almost like a dividend. Just explain that notion to us, because the Chinese are pushing ahead with a revamped yuan that pays some sort of a dividend. Why is it necessary, in your view? Is it just pushing the agenda for Coinbase, or is it good for consumers?
Yeah, so the legislation in the US has been making good progress on market structure, and I wouldn't say it's stalled. I'd say there's a good round of negotiation happening. And so
it's not stalled. There's a good round of negotiation happening. Again, we've talked about this for a week, right? When everyone was saying this is going to happen and this is going to happen, or oh, the bill's dead, or oh, Coinbase has walked away. Again, we talked about it all being negotiation language for the last week. And again, here's Brian Armstrong back at the table, walking back his words, smiling, working on the Clarity Act, making nice. Okay, again, negotiation language. We have to read between the lines and not follow the Twitter hype sometimes. Here we go.
I think that that's positive. What we shared publicly was that we want to make sure any crypto legislation in the U.S. does not ban competition for traditional financial services, banks, or traditional securities brokerages. And in our reading of the draft, that's what it did. It actually unfairly penalized crypto companies. We think they should be able to compete on a level playing field. And when there's competition, that's how the consumer benefits. And I think there's very forward-thinking bank CEOs like Bill Winters and others that have just really been leaning into this as an opportunity. They recognize change is good. And you can't get
effect on financial stability on the banking system. I don't want to enter the US debate. We see where the interests are. There are also private interests. They are legitimate. But the public purpose.
He makes a good point when they're talking about stablecoin yield, whether it's a public or private interest fighting about it. Again, Coinbase has a very personal interest in stablecoin yields and why they would fight about it. It's affecting their bottom line. Again, they don't care about us. He can say that all he wants. I don't believe him one bit. Honestly, I'm a bald guy and he makes me look bad. I just want to punch him in the face. I'm not a fan of Brian Armstrong. I don't believe a word that BDI dude says. Just me personally. Anyway, let's continue.
Should be also to preserve the stability of the financial system. In our case, CBDC, and especially the digital euro, is not intended to attack the banking system and its deposits. So we should be cautious on the transfers. I strongly believe in complementarity on public-private. And this has been the monetary system for centuries. It's a change of technology today, but it's not a change of principle.
Right. Brad, come in on this, because you're the innovator in the room, but you also believe in regulation.
Yeah, I think what's going on in the U.S. right now it is a classic dynamic of when you create new law, it's never going to be perfect. And I think what's the dynamic within the industry and working with Congress has been kind of, I subscribe to the idea that perfection is the enemy of good, and you can't get to perfection. And so I think Brian's exactly right. We're as close as we've ever been in providing that clarity. As some in the room probably know, Ripple lived through a 5-year battle with the U.S. government being sued because of the lack of clarity. So we are very much an advocate of clarity is better than chaos. So again, I think Brian's right. We are very close. I don't know if we
what
stalled
about the reward side? Rewards, dividends, interest, is it necessary on stablecoins?
Ripple doesn't have as much of a dog in that fight as others in the industry, and so there's others that have stronger opinions. It doesn't directly affect Ripple's business as much. I agree in some ways that, look, competition is good, and I agree very much with the idea of level playing field. Now, I also think a level playing field goes 2 ways, in that crypto companies should be held to standards that banks are, and banks should be held to standards that crypto companies are in order to compete. So I don't think that's a one-way street, that somehow Team Crypto gets to have a certain pass in some way.
Bill, let's hear from the banker in the room. There's pragmatism.
Little posturing there by Brad, but he's also been saying the same message the entire time. So truthfully, clarity, and again, he's right. When you make laws, not one side's going to win. And honestly, Brad seems to be taking the more grounded approach. Again, he spoke earlier in this when we were covering it. If you came in late, he spoke earlier and said that governments are not going to give up financial control. They'll roll tanks down the streets before they do that. And he's absolutely right. We're going to have to find a way to bridge and work with them. And guess what? We don't have the money. Retail's probably not going to win. So all we can do is position ourselves in the best way possible. That's why we pay attention to this kind of stuff and watch it. So this is the last piece I have for you. Then we'll hop into the rest of our show and the rest of our information. I appreciate you all sticking with me, and we'll recap, and I'll go in and answer all the questions. You can engage in the chat, but let's catch this last piece here.
We don't care. We want our customers to get the best thing for them. So if it's the medium of exchange, we want to provide them with the entry point and the exit point. And we do that today. They like us for it, and we'll keep on doing that. When it comes to store of value, especially in emerging markets, got to be compliant. Right? I mean, there's probably a black market transaction someplace that gets that local currency out of the local currency into US dollars. Sometimes it's legit, sometimes it's not. That's always been an issue, and as a bank, we're a policeman. That's our job, is to try to prevent that. Unfortunately, banks don't prevent most financial crime.
Valerie, come in on this, because we've spent all week talking about European competitiveness, and if we're talking about different regulation, different approaches here, is Europe going to be left behind?
I'm an optimistic person, and I'm a European. So, I don't think that Europe will be left aside, but Europe has to accelerate. I think and I think 25 has been a year where everybody realized that there is a need indeed for fair competition, for a level playing field, but also for acceleration in innovation. And I think there is a willingness in Europe to do so. And again, in my field, which is securities business, Euroclear as a global footprint, we have been pioneering on the issuance of digital assets about 4 years ago.
All right. Again, you can go back. I've retweeted this out. We've covered the whole thing, and I'm going to talk through all the chat. We're going to cover the highlights as far as what everything means together. But I retweeted this out. You can follow me on at Longview Crypto. Now, what does all of this mean, right? We've been talking about infrastructure on this channel now for months, okay? Building out infrastructure, whether it's crypto infrastructure or physical infrastructure. They just told us at the World Economic Forum that tokenization is global, pilots are running, and this is going to go worldwide. Stablecoins are the beginning, and stablecoins aren't even fully on yet as far as what's happening with CBDCs in Europe, as far as bringing on a digital euro, bringing on a digital yuan with China. All of these things are happening. The entire world is going blockchain, and it's going to happen through tokenization. So when we've been talking about positioning ourselves, we've been talking about infrastructure. What's going to help build out the infrastructure for tokenization? We don't know what chain it's all going to end up on, but we can follow the breadcrumbs. That's why we talk about XRP. That's why we talk about Canton Network. I saw a couple of you mention that. And if you bought that, you've been doing very well this month, right? That's why we talk about Ondo, HBAR, Chainlink, right? The things that are going to be used to bridge traditional finance. Now, Bitcoin was talked a lot about as a store of value. And again, you saw the massive pump this morning, right? In the entire crypto market, it was because a bunch of people flooded into Bitcoin again. And then the market fell because the whales sold it off. So these are things we can still expect. We are still, technically considered in speculation because we haven't hit a utility mode yet. That's what we're waiting for. But this is the infancy of adoption. This is them saying, okay, we're tokenizing everything. BlackRock wants to tokenize everything. Apollo wants to tokenize everything. Everything is getting tokenized. We know this. Quadrillions, the entire world value is going to end up on blockchain. It's our job to figure out where and what's going to appreciate from it. So we have to follow the breadcrumbs. And when we talk about BlackRock wanting to tokenize everything, and then we find out that BlackRock and Blackstone are invested in a blockchain, that raises eyebrows, and some of you caught that, and that's what we've been talking about. Again, none of this is financial advice. This is based on my research. I'm not a financial advisor, but when I'm building out my portfolio for the next 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, I'm looking at what problems do we need to solve over that time and what is best positioned to do it. And then I make my commitment and we go from there and we build out for the long view. So let's hop into the chat. Keep it going, guys. I see that the stream is climbing. I've got more information coming for you guys today, but I want to engage in the chat a little bit. I appreciate everyone for taking their time to be here. And let's see, Raul was in the house. He was the first one in here. Let's see here. Everyone should be buying right now. Maybe the last time in these prices. It's very possible. Again, we've been talking about the $1.75 level as a pullback right now, and we've gotten down so far as $1.86. Right now, RSI has cooled again, but look, remember we talk about divergences and things like that? This is showing me that this is probably going to continue down. Because it shot up all the way up here and RSI got up to 65-ish. Well, if we come over last time we were at this price, RSI was down here at oversold, and that's right where it snapped and turned around. So it, cleared out its negative momentum, got the price up, got the RSI up, and then boop, just dropped again. And now we're sitting here at $1.87. When the last time we were at $1.87, we were deep into oversold territory. So again, we're probably going to bounce off EMA 9 and continue back down towards the $1.77, $1.75 level. That is what I'm expecting before we bounce and hopefully get a nice appreciation. So Resident B said hello to everyone. Raul said he picked up some CC today. Good for you, Raul. Alcoholic Click says, who is the Brad guy who is always on stage but never speaks? He doesn't have to talk. He's not really, they were talking a lot about stablecoin and stablecoin yield, and that's not what Ripple does. But did you guys pick up the comments they were saying about cross-border and how that's going to be a major impact? And Brad's just sitting over there in the corner smiling. He knows it's coming. As soon as this happens, man, as soon as we start getting into cross-border payments and start switching out between things, it's that's when we're really going to see the use case for XRP, and we'll hop into the on-chain activity and take a look here in a minute, and I'll go over the rest of the crypto market as well. But again, this is why we focus on infrastructure, and I'm so glad that CC's taking off right now because it's an excellent point. Not so much because I'm invested in it and some of you are invested in it. I'm glad you're making money. But it's just an excellent point about following the breadcrumbs and looking for the infrastructure. And it, it really validates the point when one takes off right after. But at the same time, it doesn't change my mindset on what's going to be 5-10 years from now based on it going up and down. But it gives proof, I guess. It gives proof of work. It gives social proof to people who are coming in and finding it that, this might be a good direction as far as focusing on utility and infrastructure building out over the next 10 years, both in digital assets, right? Cryptocurrency, and in physical assets, copper, silver, gold, right? Alternative energy. All of these things are going to be crucial over the next 10 years. Let's see here. The three brothers said good afternoon. Welcome, three brothers. Desiree made it in today. Hello, Desiree. Alcoholic Click said the train has derailed. Yeah, because the video stalled at the very beginning. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody because of that. Lisa Cotton Candy is in the house. Said that Brad Guy's CEO of Ripple. Everything about XRP is kept hush. Yeah, that's probably why Brad doesn't talk too much about that stuff. He hardly even mentioned RLUSD. He was more talking about clarity and trying to get things pushed through. Let's see here. Crypto Roger made it in the house. Good day. He said, God day all. Amen, Crypto Roger. I knew what you meant to say, though. Lisa Cotton Candy says, what does the Bitcoin standard mean? Nothing. It was something that Brian Armstrong's probably trying to get to stick, referring to people coming off the gold standard and they should create a Bitcoin standard or a US dollar. Those are their best options, essentially. Crypto Rogers said, reason I bought 100K Flare is for every penny it goes up, that yields $1,000 profit. Basically set it and forget it. But with the creation of XRP hooks, Flare may become obsolete if they don't grow. Well, I don't think we're really going to see an answer on Flare probably till we get towards the end of this year, once they roll out their new staking options for the big players and the airdrops start. Honestly, I think there is opportunity there. That's why I have some. You went bigger into it than I did. And I went in on it probably like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, but you went a lot more into it than I did. However, I do think it still has good potential upside. Maybe not as some of the others, but again, we're seeing how this industry unfolds as we move forward. It's constantly changing. And as we get until we get regulation, it's going to change even more. Once we have regulation and know what we're working with, then it's going to be a little bit easier to diagnose. Crypto Roger said, so I would say Flare is a pretty decent risk. Don't spend more than you care to lose. Yes, it is. All of this is a risk, honestly. As far as choosing what winners and losers we're going to have. If you think about the internet era, we talk about that a lot. If you think about the internet era, in the early 90s, the big winner was going to be AOL. Everyone thought AOL was going to be around forever. But it turns out it was Yahoo, Google, Amazon, right? And the chip makers, NVIDIA, the hardware makers, Microsoft, Apple, right? Google, all these software companies, right? So when you're talking about the internet, nothing really happened with the internet until we got true regulation, TSP, IP, right? Infrastructure laid beneath the surface is what drove the acceleration of the internet. And that's what we're looking at now. We're looking at the defining infrastructure of blockchain and how it's going to go forward in global finance. So that's why we're paying such close attention, because we want to know what chain, what's going to be running on and how it's going to work, because that allows us the best opportunity to position ourselves for a gain, because they're not going to care about us. We're not going to make money after it's done. We already know that. You can see that everywhere. Resident B said, I liked your video on Canton. Will you be doing other crypto breakdowns? I think I will. I'm going to talk about my infrastructure plays that I am behind. So when I originally came onto YouTube, it started as a crypto education channel. That was the goal, was just overall crypto education. And I was doing my videos and I was talking about the videos or the different cryptos that I liked. And I did a video on XRP and it blew up, right? Because everyone wants to follow XRP. And in YouTube, you have to really hone your niche in order to grow. So basic crypto is just too broad. So I started on XRP, but I am about so much more than XRP. XRP is one of the tools in my chest. I'm more about the entire infrastructure of digital assets and real world assets going forward. Let's see here. Sir Charles, let's see, said, looking forward to the stream today. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Quelly says, hi there. Thank you for summary. It's so dull. Yeah, I'm not going to make you guys watch the whole thing verbatim. And again, keep engaging in the chat. We'll keep this going as long as we can. And again, I'll get back into the rest of the information as well. But we really wanted to cover tokenization. So I want to hear your questions, thoughts, and opinions in the stream. Sir Charles said, LOL. I'm guessing that's when I was talking about Brian Armstrong. Probably. I just don't like his face. I don't know. I'm sure people feel that way about me sometimes. I don't trust that guy at all, man. Raul says we're getting up there. Stream is growing. I appreciate everyone for taking your time to be here. Hit the like button, share it far and wide. Let's get this thing growing. Engage in the chat. It is the lifeblood. I appreciate all of you. Let's see. Abdul says, any opinion about HSX? Are you meaning SHX, right? Stronghold, I'm guessing. A lot of people think it's competition for XRP, but it kind of plays in a different sandbox, assuming you're talking about SHX Stronghold. I personally don't have any of it because to me, it doesn't have enough backing to jump into it yet. But again, you have to do your own research and find the products and projects that you believe in. But for me, when I was looking at alternative infrastructure plays, I try to focus on 5 and 5 only. There shouldn't be 15 projects that you believe in enough to continuously invest in, and you don't have to worry about if it's going up or down. You know what I'm saying? So I try to keep it listed to 5 that I am fully supported in, so I don't have to worry about price. So right now, when I was doing research about possibly adding a 5th pillar, because I had 4 pillars, I ended up settling in on Canton Network, but that was because of the backing and the adoption behind it. And if you missed the video on that, you can check out the video. But again, none of this is financial advice. It's for entertainment, educational purposes only. But that is how I came to that decision. So Stronghold, I'm not going to say is bad, but I preferred Canton over it, if that makes sense. Valentina gave me a bunch of emojis. Appreciate you. Surgical Tyavery, in your opinion, the time frame is 10 years out? I don't know the time frame, in my opinion. I am invested in the long view. My entire channel is about the long view of crypto, the long view of investing, the long view of your life, really, about building and getting better over time. But I do believe that tokenization is probably going to take, for the scale that we're talking about. I mean, I think the entire switch over to blockchain infrastructure, probably take about a decade. Yeah, 5 to 10 years for the whole thing. But we're going to see ramped up acceleration. We're going to see new technologies. We're going to see new blockchain projects come out that we haven't even heard of yet. Who was talking about Canton Network 3 months ago, right? Nobody. But they've been around since 2014. So there's going to be a ton of stuff that is going to be coming into the space that we have to really pay attention to. But I think the bulk of the acceleration is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years, as far as utility coming on, price coming on. Like, we're going to see this transition sooner rather than later. But for the full effect, yeah, probably a decade, honestly. I mean, how long did it take for the internet to get from AOL dial-up to streaming, right? 20, 30 years. So blockchain's only been around for about, 10 years or so, 12 years or so now? 2011 or 2009 was when Bitcoin came out. So 27 years, if you want to look at it that way. But adoption hasn't happened at scale at all yet. We are just now in pilot programs. So really, yeah, about 10 years. Long-winded answer to say, yeah. Sir Charles, I was laughing when you talked about the bald guy. Oh, Brian Armstrong. Yeah, not a Brian Armstrong fan. Francesca says, I'm checking in from Sydney, Australia at 5:30 a.m. Welcome, Francesca. Thank you for joining the show, taking your time to be here. That's early. Oh, dark 30. William Wagner says, what is your first pick for tokenization companies? So my tokenization plays are HBAR and Ondo and XRP. So what I hold, my infrastructure plays are XRPL, HBAR, Chainlink, Ondo, and Canton Network. Those are my 5 pillars. Not saying there's not other good ones out there, or not saying you shouldn't invest or whatever. But I mean, a lot of tokenization is happening on Ethereum. But I just don't like Ethereum. I can't get behind it because I don't think it's the best option. A lot of people are in Solana. I don't trust Solana either. So really what I'm hoping for is another layer 2 to come on the market that fills those roles. That's better personally. But again, I always say we have to follow the money, and the most money is invested in Ethereum. That's Wall Street's baby. I know that. So is Ethereum going to fail? Probably not, but there's other things I'd rather put my money in, even though I think Ethereum is probably going to be successful just because of so much backing behind it. I personally think there's better options, and they can create better options than Ethereum, but that's what the bulk of tokenization is being built on right now, unfortunately. So hopefully that answers your question. Resident B says, I did see that Stronghold is at the WEF and sponsoring Davos. There you go. They are there. Again, I'm not saying they're bad. I would rather invest in other things for me personally. Yeshua says, hello, everyone. What do you think of Dogecoin? Does it have any usage? I don't think so. I don't think Doge has any utility. That's like, Doge is like the most popular meme coin, really. But what function does it serve? I never heard of a function that it serves other than people liked it and thought it was cool. Again, my opinion, not financial advice, but I'm just not on board with Doge because I don't think it has any real utility. Quelly says, I was thinking about buying Canton or Flare, but to be honest, I should probably just cool down. Enough risk with XRP as it is. The most I could invest would be like 20, and that won't make a dent. Well, again, we talk about dollar cost averaging, building over time. Everyone's situation is different. Just because someone's investing $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 doesn't matter if you're investing $10 or $20 if you have a consistent plan over time. Again, I talk about investing 10% of your paycheck before you do anything else and living off of the rest. That's my model. Again, everyone needs to develop their own model. But 10% gets invested off the top. I pay my future self. And then you break that up amongst your investments, however you have it best sorted out. But it's not about entering. I know people talk about entering them with size, moving out with size. I'm old school. Most people can't do that. Most people don't have the discipline to do that. Most people don't have the discipline to brush their teeth in the morning sometimes, okay? But if you want to get out of the hellhole, it's step by step. It's consistency. It's discipline. It's over time. And if you do that for a decade, yeah, that sounds like a long time. Trust me, I wish I would have listened to my advice right now when I was 18 or 30 years old. Believe me, I really did. If I could go back and do it again, I would, in a heartbeat. Now, granted, I had to go through all of the things to learn the lessons, but don't get down on yourself if you can only invest $10 or $20. The only thing I would say is don't invest it if you have credit card debt. Pay down that credit card debt. That's what I would say. Not financial advice, but truthfully, invest what you can. The fact that you are in this space at all, educating yourself, puts you ahead of 90% of people. Honestly. So give yourself a little credit. You're learning, you're improving, you're getting knowledge, and you're trying to improve your situation. That takes courage. And that's the step you have to take. It doesn't always look pretty or grand when you're taking those first couple of steps. But when you look back later, that's when it becomes worth it. And you get that weight off your shoulders. Oh, it feels great. Let's see here. Ripple is a launch partner alongside Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, for BNY Mellon's new tokenized deposit service for institutional clients. Yes, you are 100% correct. Yeah, ICE is they're involved in something else too. I've seen ICE, not just with the BNY Mellon. I saw ICE with someone else too. Not that ICE, you know what I'm saying? But the Intercontinental Exchange, their partner was someone else too that Ripple's involved with. So I mean, Ripple is plugging in, and we talk about the account set activity and all those accounts coming online, and that means something. Once we start getting payments volume, man, and it's all coming on chain, we can see it. New York Stock Exchange tokenized on the XRPL is more likely. Well, ICE is who I actually looked up who the New York Stock Exchange is going to be using, and they use ICE. That's who it was. Ripple is a launch partner, so they're talking about BNY Mellon's tokenized deposit, but ICE is also working with New York Stock Exchange. So you can start to see where this tokenization is going. Again, not financial advice, but when you start seeing those dots, connect them. So ICE is working with Ripple here more than likely. And again, BNY Mellon is a Ripple partner, right? So who is ICE going to use to tokenize with? Is it going to be Ethereum? Is it going to be the XRPL? We don't know, but they're already working together. Jose Mendez says, how long do you think institutional adoption will kick in after clarity is passed, or is it going to be a slow trickle or a mad rush? I think we'll see an initial bump and then a pullback and then a slow trickle, just like you do anything that comes online. As soon as it comes in, there's a bunch of hype and FOMO, and then yay, and it jumps up, you know what I mean? And then it'll come back down, and then it'll just trickle up. Because it's not, I mean, as much as once we get the Clarity Act, that doesn't mean quadrillions are coming on Ledger all at once. I wish it did, but that's not how it's going to work. It doesn't unlock everything all at the same time. It will take a build out over time. And I know a lot of people said that this crisis was going to cause this, or this crisis is going to cause that. But let's look at the evidence over the last 5 years of blockchain and in the last 5 years of crypto and the narratives we've heard play out. Which one seems more true to you? A long view approach or a pump and dump approach? Which one seems more likely? A long view approach over 10 years, or something's going to go to $1,000 over the next 12? You know what I'm saying? So over the next 12 months, you know, what's going to go to $1,000 over the next 12 months? Which seems smarter or more realistic in your brain? You guys are smart people. You are. Just you get, a lot of people got duped with hype, and that's, you know, that's propaganda. That's what happens. Yeshua says, do you see Ondo going to $3 this year if clarity passes? I mean, I don't even know what it's at right now. I haven't looked at the price of Ondo in so long. What's Ondo at right now? Ondo's at 32 cents. No, I don't see a 10x this year. Maybe a 5x. I think if we get $1.50 with Ondo this year, we should be very, very happy with a 5x. My opinion. I would be happy with a 5x on Ondo. And if we're looking at it from, you know, a grand point of view, if we look at the last year, again, now grant Zcash is doing great, but if you look at the last year, the entire crypto market is full of opportunity. This is a fire sale. Everything's down like 60 to 70%. Ondo's down 75%. XRP's down almost 40%. Chainlink's down 51%. So to me, this is a buying opportunity. We are in the dip stage, but what is concerning is the overall market is still in overall greed right now, and the crypto market is struggling. So there's still a rotation out of risk assets right now due to the global geopolitical stuff going on right now, macroeconomic. But fundamentally, as we watch what's happening at the WEF, and we see these people talking about how tokenization is happening at scale. This year is going to be tokenization at scale, according to the bigwigs, right? That's what they just said. If you watched it with me, you saw it. So with tokenization happening at scale, and we've had such a pullback, are we going to have more of a pullback? Maybe. But I mean, do you guys think this is going to be worth less in 10 years than it is now? Or do you think there's going to be a major appreciation based on the groundwork that's being laid out? My opinion, not financial advice. Let's see here. You are right about investing. I wish I would be back to tell myself to do it. Yeah, Raul, I mean, everything's a start. just start. If it's $20 this week and $10 next week and $20 3 weeks from then, whatever. The point is, when you look back at the end of the year, have you built something? And then once you build it and you start to see it grow, it becomes addictive. And then you get that confidence in investing. And then you're less stressed about it because it becomes easy and you're not worried about it going up and down because it's a part of your system, because it's a part of your routine. And then 5 years down the road, you're out of debt and you have a nice nest egg and you don't have any stress weighing on your shoulders and you're able to move through life that way. Oh, I wish that for all of you, truthfully. That, to me, I mean, that's not financial freedom, but once you get the debt monkey off your back and you don't have that debt slavery thing pulling you in, making you go to work every day just so you can afford to pay the debt. Once you get out of that mode of life, that's a big relief in it of itself. And I wish that for all of you. Francesca says, what is your take on Pepe? Haven't done a lot of research on Pepe. Don't own any Pepe. I did take a swing at Lil Pepe on a pre-sale a while back. I think I got that at like 0.018 cents or something like that. But I got it really, really cheap. But again, it's still in pre-sale, but I wouldn't. I mean, those are dart throws. That is gambling, by the way. That's a meme coin. That's gambling. So, I mean, I don't have a take on Little Pepe or on Pepe, excuse me. I haven't researched it at all. So I wouldn't feel comfortable giving you any advice on it. Yeshua says, when is a good time to buy Canton? Well, I mean, I haven't done any technical analysis on Canton like I do XRP. But I mean, again, we talk about not buying at the tops. Let's see what Canton's doing right now. That's for the day. Let's look for the month. So currently its high was at 17 cents. Currently it's at 14 cents. I mean, without going through and doing technical analysis, I mean, it's really hard to determine because I don't want to tell you to wait till it goes down, but the market's going down right now and Canton's going up. So it's not moving with Bitcoin. Just saying, that's interesting that Canton is not moving with Bitcoin. I would have to do some technical analysis on it, but I would say right now we are still early as F on Canton. I actually looked to see some videos out there, so I was trying to get ideas of how to present my video on Canton, and there was like 2. So there's really not a lot of information on Canton out there, and I just started getting into it, but it's not moving with Bitcoin, which I thought was interesting. So again, I can't give you a good time to buy it, but we're here for the long view. Do your research. And if you feel comfortable with holding it for 5 to 10 years, then it really shouldn't matter if we're buying it 17 cents or 14 cents. Just my personal opinion, because again, we're here for the long view, not about timing tops and bottoms. My opinion, not financial advice. And it is interesting, isn't it? Gunpowder says, I can imagine XRP ETF supply decreasing faster with it being 24/7 on the New York Stock Exchange. That's definitely a possibility. Really, what's going to have the biggest impact on the ETF supply is going to be liquidity coming into the market, the overall macro government, because a lot of, like, remember, a lot of the purchasing from the ETFs is going to be when we get that retirement money coming in, right? 401ks. We've just started that process. These just opened up 2 months ago, people. Keep that in mind, maybe 3 months now. But they just came online a couple months ago. It took Ethereum a full year before they saw any real traction with their ETF. So this is the beginning stages of everything. And a lot of people got this massive letdown from it because they were promised, $1,000, $10,000 XRP. So when nothing happens, they're all burnt out on it. And now crypto's dumb and crypto's a scam. Well, it just gives us longer time to accumulate, unfortunately. When you go back, you can pull up details and stuff like that. We can Google it right now. But I mean, whale accumulation is happening at these levels. Again, when there's blood in the street, buy the deep. When things are at all-time highs, it's not the best time to buy. Oh, that rhymes too. We got 2 of them now. But again, none of that's financial advice, but to me, it seems like common sense. If fundamentally nothing has changed and the price is falling on something, that's typically the best time to buy. If fundamentally nothing has changed and the price is shooting up, that's typically not the that's typically not the best time to buy. So, my opinion. Let's see here. That is the entire chat. How many people do we have in here right now? I know it got up to like 40. We're down to 29 right now. But that was the entire chat. We went through everything. We covered the entire, well, not the entire video, but we covered a lot of the video. When are we going to see real supply shock with XRP? Well, according to our model, when we get to roughly 1.6 to 2 billion XRP locked in the ETFs, according to my supply shock model, based on the math and everything going on as far as what's actually happening on Ledger, we should see the next stage of it when we get to 2 billion locked into ETFs. And again, we're going to have a lot more information after that too, as far as hopefully the Market Structure Act or the Clarity Act, right? What's happening with tokenization, what's happening on Ledger. When we're looking at things about what's happening on Ledger, we've been focusing on the account set activity because we're starting to see increased payments volume too. We've talked about this. Let me pull up the account set here. I mean, I've mentioned this literally in every stream. I think I'm the only person who talks about this particular metric. But the account set activity, again, has maintained. It hasn't gone down. We're still looking at 40K a day since the beginning of November. But we've been talking about wanting to see that translate into payment volume. And we are seeing increased payment volume. Again, we want to see it continue to push past 2 million and stay up there. But we are maintaining well over 1 million right now and growing. So we're looking for that to continue as we get more action on Ledger. Let's see. Let's see. Quelly says, where can I send you a private message? Need to ask you something not on forum. You can go to my website, or not my website. You can go to my channel, and under my channel, there's a contact email. Or you can also message me on X at Longview Crypto. You could DM me on X at Longview Crypto as well. Or you can send me an email. The contact is on my channel page under the contact info. Yeshua says, I feel like it's always a hush-hush about XRP with the big institutions. Well, they don't want to mention anything by name. They can declare Ripple, but that's the thing is they can't connect directly XRP and Ripple because then XRP would be a security of Ripple, which would be bad juju. That's what we fought the SEC on. So that's going to constantly be a thing. XRP is going to have to move on its own based to supply and demand dynamics, and I think that's going to come from utility. That's what I've said from the get-go. But again, we're about building out infrastructure for the long view. What's going to happen a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, not what's actually happening today, tomorrow, or next week. So price has gone back up to $1.90 right now. So basically right where we started from this morning's little push up, fall back, and now we're chopping again. Again, this could fall back down to $1.75. That is our safety net, right? Because that's where that multi-billion-dollar purchase happened, not once, but twice, right? Once in November, once in October. So until we push through that, I'm considering that our bottom support. Let's see here. Even mainstream media. Well, mainstream media is starting to talk about XRP right now. I mean, CNBC came out and was talking about XRP. So it is starting to work its way into mainstream media as well. But again, if you guys want to watch the entire video, I retweeted it on X. Again, you can follow me at Longview Crypto, and you can watch it. The whole thing's 50 minutes. There's some other good pieces in there that I didn't cover, but again, it was a long video, and I didn't want to watch the whole thing in the stream with y'all. So I appreciate everyone taking your time to be here. I'll see you at noon tomorrow. Later.